Good morning, friends. Happy Tuesday. Tippy's Legacy 2021. Her pictures are coming up in the memory. So is my other dog. He died around the same time, 2 years prior to Tippy. So I hope you're having a good morning. You know, one of the meteorologists, he does lives on Facebook, Tony Manafi. He's been posting, this is the dog days of summer here because it's the hottest. Mid-July to mid-August. We get those 105 temps, and I come out in the morning to walk because the weather's still nice. So, you know, I was talking about coffee being a healthy hydration because I know people get bored of water, or you say, well, I don't like water. Hydration. And when I worked, when I was an active registered nurse years ago, cardiac was one of my specialties. I worked in a cardiac care unit in New York City, a very large one, for a couple of years, and a little later I did cardiac rehab in 2 centers. And that was very nice. And a couple of my friends are on here that I worked with, 2 in the CCU, although one doesn't come on Facebook enough, but the other one, Ramona, hi Ramona, we worked nights together in New York Hospital. It's called New York Presbyterian Hospital now. And my friend Carol on here, we were both working in a cardiac rehab in Brooklyn, and she invited me to come to the Staten Island one closer to where we live because they were opening up another day, and she invited me to be the Wednesday nurse. So I really loved cardiac rehab. Those were my last jobs before I became too sick to work. But I really enjoyed it. Back when I was in the CCU working, we didn't have stents. This was in the 80s. We didn't have stents. They were doing angioplasty. So many times the angioplasty would fail. And the patients, sometimes patients were there every 6 months having surgery, their chest cracked open. And what the cardiologist always said, those cholesterol drugs don't work, it's what they're eating. They knew then. They knew then. And today it's even worse. All the marketing of fast foods, people aren't taking care of themselves. I noticed there's a number of cardiac events in the summer. And I'll give you 2 reasons. It's unhealthy habits and not enough hydration. If you're not getting hydrated, the hot weather is going to thicken up your blood, and if you have a blockage that you don't know about, you're going to get chest pain. And you'll end up in the hospital. And unhealthy habits, if you're, not cleaning up what you're doing, and you don't know, you don't think you need to. You probably don't think, well, that's not going to hurt me. It's always a surprise, and most cardiac patients, after they have a cardiac event, they always go into a depression. I know years ago, when I worked in a same-day surgery center, there were one of the anesthesiologists, there were 10 anesthesiologists that owned it, and one of them was only 44 years old, had a heart attack, and he was in a depression for a long time. I had another, there was a patient in one of the cardiac rehabs. He was 38 years old. The first day he came in, his eyes were popping out of his head. He was getting chest pain as he was walking through the ER doors. He went into cardiac arrest. So he kept talking about his near-death experience. And what he was doing, he says, I can't understand that I went to Jack LaLanne 3 times a week. But what he was doing, him and his wife went to the high-end restaurants around New York. They like to go out to eat. So he wasn't cleaning up his habits. Doesn't matter how much exercise you're doing, if you're not eating properly, it's only a matter of time. And, same with actually, they called it adult onset diabetes, type 2 diabetes years ago. There weren't all these insulins. My father, he was old school, pre-Depression era, born in 1915. He was a lot older than me. He was close to 50 when I was born. And one day, the lab calls his doctor and says, "Is this man still alive?" His blood sugar was 863 or 53, something like that. My father said, "No hospital, no insulin." So my mother was on the phone all week with the doctor, going over the meals. And by the end of the week, his blood sugar was 120. People from old school like that, going on insulin was like one of the nails of your coffin. So hydration. Let's get to hydration. It's simple. I know people, I don't like water. Well, there's other things you can drink with the water. The blood does thicken up in the heat. And if you have a blockage you don't know about, you're going to get chest pain, especially if your habits aren't good. My father had heart disease, and he actually lived to almost 80 because he was eating better, but he still, would go out to eat with his friends. And also heart disease and diabetes, it didn't come out of the blue. His mother had it. I mean, lots of family members have it. So if you have a genetic predisposition, if you're not taking care of yourself, that type 2 diabetes is going to creep up with you, and diabetes and heart disease go together. So hydration, simple. Coffee is a healthy hydration. They finally recognize that now. It's full of antioxidants. You can include coffee. There's electrolyte drinks that the marathon runners use. They know now patients need them, like me. You need to take care of yourself. I mean, it shocks me when I hear people saying they have 14, 15, 16 stents. It's like the Stent of the Month Club. I think, oh man. At one time, they wouldn't have been alive that long because there were no stents. And angioplasties failed. They get the angioplasty, be back less than 6 months if they didn't clean it up. One thing I loved about the cardiac rehab, patients would come in after their cardiac events, and we had a healthy heart program. And I'll tell you, one of them had a creative biller. So the patients weren't there just 12 weeks, they were there forever. And they would book their time slots together, they made friends. And we always knew when one of them was slacking off on what they were eating, because their blood pressure would be through the roof. And I'm not saying this to be mean, okay? Once you enter the cardiac club, you're on medications for the rest of your life. And I can tell you from my own chronic illness, it's very expensive. The last 31 years, I know, I had a pharmaceutical bill that was unbelievable early on. And I probably spent over $500,000 trying to get well. Insurance doesn't cover everything. People have I can't believe it, the insurance didn't cover. It doesn't. Especially if you have some chronic illness that isn't recognized by half the medical profession, and you're going to some doctors that know about it and things aren't FDA approved, you have to pay. You have to pay. So the thing is, hydration, it's simple. Stay hydrated. In the summer, even if you're going out for a little while and then you're back in the central air, you'd be surprised how fast you become dehydrated. And sensible loss doesn't get enough credit. Sweating. Breathing. You can look it up. I love helping people get into healthy habits because they can do so much better and avoid the inevitable or prevent it many years. So I hope somebody heard. I always say if one person hears what I'm saying, I'm grateful. Not everybody, though. And, that's okay. So, actually, I'm by the lake here now. See this here? I love this spot. It's my happy spot. Your mental health means a lot, too. Many times it's our mental health, what's in between our ears, that is getting in the way. So I have about 2 more blocks. I'm going to go home and get ready for my cardiologist appointment. My blood pressure is too low. I actually have a neurological disease that I finally got the diagnosis and the treatment across the board after 28 years. Imagine going through that. I'll tell you, at one point, I thought, can't live 5 more years like this. Can't live 5 more years like this, and this went on. Can't live 5 more. I kept thinking, I didn't think I would see my kids grow up. So that's one of the reasons I would say, Ann, don't give up. You got to keep looking. Because there's something out there. So really, friends, from the bottom of my heart, take care of yourself. Because tomorrow isn't promised. Tomorrow isn't promised. You could be walking like this and then sit down at home, go to sleep, and it's all over. So, I love you, friends. God bless. Remember my dog, Tippy. She had kidney disease the last month of her life. We were walking 10,000 steps a day. And she never gave up to the last day of her life. I love you, friends. God bless. See you next time.